There's another form called Tanam. I call it Tana, Tanam, both work. Tanam is the Tamilization of the word. What is the form? I've, by the way, purposely kept avoided using any comparisons to Hindustani music because I don't think that is necessary for me to do. I'm only speaking about the form that I know. Therefore, I'm purposely not making connections saying this is like that, this is not like that, that is that, this is this. Okay? Because I know all minds are ticking also, right? No? ये तो यहाँ भी होता है ना, हाँ हम भी करते हैं ना, those kind of things. No? So if we can switch off the ticking brain, it will help us a little bit, right? So, because we do the same thing. When we listen to some music, oh, we also do the same thing. So I know how it works. That's why I'm saying this. Okay, so Tanam is a very important aspect, and in fact, one of the most Neraval is in fact one of the hardest improvisational forms to use because you have text, you have tala, you have laya, you have raga all coming together. Tana is very interesting because it has a rhythmic form but does not have a tala boundary. So there is a rhythm form of 3, 4, all being played, but it's not bound by an 8-beat cycle or 7-beat cycle or 14-beat cycle. The base of Tana is Chaturashra, is 4. Okay? But in that we are layering 3, 4, 5, all these things. The traditional way of singing Tana is usually like using a linear mode of alapana singing. We start at the sajja and we move up the octave up to the tarastai and finish it like we do it in alapana. But I'll just sing certain portions of it. Ganum ta tum tum ta ta ganum tum ta ta num ta ganum ta ta ganum tum tum ta ta ganum tum ta ta ganum ta ganum ta 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 ta ganum num ta num ta num ta num num ta num 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 ta ta ganum ta ga ta ganum ta ta ga ta ganum ta ta ga ta ganum ta num ta num num ta ta ganum num ta ta ga ta gu ta ga ta ga ga ta gu ta ta ga ga ta gu ta ta ga ta ga ga ta gu ta ta ga 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 num na gu ta ta ga ga ta gu ta num num ta num ta num ta num ta ga ga num ta ta ga ta ga ga num ta 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 ga ga num ta ta ga num ta ta ga num ta ta num ta ta ga ta ga ta ga ta ga num ta ta ga num ta ga ga ta gu ta na gu ta ta ga ta ga ga num tum Now, what we do in Tanam is, again, there are 3s and there are 4s. And the beautiful part is how one pattern flows into another pattern. That's where the whole beauty is. So, you will be playing with 3 patterns of 3, 3. And then suddenly it will transform, you will try doing many things with it, and then it will become a 4 pattern. Then it will become a 5 pattern. Then it will swing back to a 2 pattern. And it's in this constant movement that Tana is actually found. Ayanum tete ayanum tete ayayanum te gum te rum tum te Anum tada ganau tada ganau tada ganau tada ganau tada ganum num tada ganum dum tada ganum dum tada num taganum tada ganau tada ganau taganau So you can see that this is of course one of the most important forms. It's also challenging because how do you maintain the raga? How do you create forms? How do you create it in swara yet hold the raga bhava? Because the raga is not, it has to be very carefully held. And you're creating rhythmic patterns. You're actually creating nom nom ta ta ga na u ta nom nom ta ta ga nom ta nom ta ta ga nom ta nom, and then sometimes you do reductionist also. So nom ta ga na u ta nom na u ta da u ta nom. So nom ta ga nom na u ta da u ta ga nom na u ta nom ta nom ta nom ta nom. So there's also reductionism happening. So and it's so what you do is you create a pattern, build it, sometimes reduce it, create a pattern, build it, you reduce it. Sometimes you create a pattern, build it, flow it to 3 more patterns, and then there's the reduction. This reduction and expansion is a very important aspect of the Tanam aesthetic. And the reduction happens also vertically, right? You're going up the form and you're reducing it back to a form. You're going up the form, reducing it, you're going down. So Tanam is very, very important. And there are 2 keys that happen in the Tanam which are constant, which are important markers. One is how does each round finish? Now if I finish a round, there is a classic finishing. Tam. This is a classic stand. This is part of the aesthetic form. I have to finish Tanam rounds like this. So then the violin will play. Right? Then it's of course an exchange. So we do that in every stage. Then some people also do another thing. Once they go to the Tarasthai Sajja, they'll crank the tempo up. Nom tum 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 ta ta ga nom 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 ta anom ta ta ga na uda ga na uda ga na uda na uda ga na uda ga na uda ga na uda na uda anom ta ta no uda ga na uda na uda uda na uda na uda uda na uda na uda na uda na uda na uda rom da nom da nom da rom da nom 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 da ga nom da ga nom da ga nom da so some people do that also. I'm not so fond of it. That's my own personal aesthetic sense. But that also, sometimes it comes as a flow, sometimes it doesn't. Then what happens is when you finish the Tanam, there is a motif that this same motif takita 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 taka takita tattam is used in the Sajja, Panchama and Sajja. So this raga is called Shri. Nom ta nom ta ta nom ta nom ta. Nom ta nom ta nom ta ta nom ta nom ta. Reduction. Nom ta nom ta nom ta nom ta nom ta nom ta ta. So there's a certain reduction that also happens. And in the end, my guru used to is to completely slow the speed down at the end. That's something I do. Not everybody does this. My guru used to do that, so I also I like that slowing down. So the Tanam is of course a very, very challenging form. An important aspect is again what determines Tanam. Again, Raga. I have to keep on going back to Raga for everything. There are certain ragas in which Tanam does not work. There is something called Ghana. There's another word that we use is Ghana. Not the generic usage of the word Ghana Raga. It's used very generically. But Ghana is a certain toughness that is there in the Raga. A possibility of movement that is defined and rigid. Certain ragas have it. Shri has it. Gaula has it. Nate has it. Some ragas don't have that rigidity. In those ragas, singing Tanam can be done. Not that it cannot be done, but it's something we need to think about. So ragas, the kind of raga that you render also defines whether you can sing Tana and the raga or not. So sometimes in some ragas, Tana just doesn't aesthetically blend. A raga like Neelambari. Now, can you sing Tanam and Neelambari? You can sing. Is it appropriate to sing Tanam and Neelambari? A different question. So these are things also that guide whether we sing Tanam. One important aspect of the Carnatic music tradition is what is known as a Ragam, Tanam, Pallavi suite, where you sing an expansive alapana. Some musicians sing it in 4 stages. So you have stage in Mandara Madhyasthai approximately, then in Madhyasthai, then in Tarasthai, then finishing. So 4 stages of alapana between the violin and the vocal. Then there are multiple stages of Tana that is sung. So that's expansive alapana, about 30-40 minutes, then our Tanam for another 20-30 minutes, and then you take a 1-line composition. A Pallavi is a 1-line composition. Now, in the olden days, these Pallavis used to be actually 1 line out of a Vagyakara's composition. They used to pick up 1 line from it and not sing the whole song, just pick that line and sometimes even tune it themselves in a different raga. They used to use the lyrics and in a different raga, in a different rhythmic structure. And then in that you have to again go back to singing expansive Neraval, expansive Kalpanaswara, and there's some math involved, but we do all this. So, but this is in fact the complete spirit of Raga comes across when you can do this. There are different kinds of Pallavi. Sometimes the structures are extremely slow. It's called a Nalu Kalai Pallavi. I'll sing a sample of the Pallavi structure. In Shankarabharanam. So it's Adi Tala into 4. So 8 beat, every beat has 4. Okay, so show it in your hand. The real masters will only put 1 beat. I'm not a master. They'll just say, and that's it. It'll all hold back. I apologize, I don't have that capacity. So I'm going to show you all the 4 beats. The She Re Te Karuna Payo Nidhe Inakulati Lekada She Re Te Karuna Payo Nidhe Inakulati Lekada She Re Te Now, obviously, the space here is so much. Ni the ina kula tila kada shara te Here you can sing Neraval of all possible types because there's so much breathing space. So it's called a Nalakala Pallavi. Apparently in those days people used to sing 16 color. That is 1 into 16, each beat into 16. I have not heard it personally, but I've heard people used to do it. But this is a huge challenge because you have to know how to fill this whole space with all the different varieties of Neraval singing based on the raga. So you sing raga type, you sing in raga type, you sing with jarus, you sing with faster phrases, you sing with gamaka. You build the edifice very slowly. Then you sing samakala. In samakala, this is very interesting. A lot of akaras. The So even in this, sometimes we go from area to area. You sing only in Gandhara, only in Panchama, only in Sajja. So it completely depends on the musician and depends on the scope. And you sing Melkala. Melkala is even more interesting because there are not too many syllables for you to use as support. So it's very difficult to speak and sing. The So, and then we do a little bit of singing it in a higher speed, lower speed. So, they're much better than me because they have to play with so many musicians. They are on their button on all these things. So, the ina kulati lakada sharathe karuna payo nidhe ina kulati lakada sharathe karuna payo nidhe inakula tilakada sharate 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 karuna payo nidhe inakula tilakada. You can also do a tishram. Sometimes what we do is we reduce it then to reticle or 2 beats per beat. So, da sharate karuna payo nidhe inakula tilaka da sharate karuna payo nidhe inakula tilaka da sharate karuna payo nidhe inakula tilaka da sharate karuna payo nidhe inakula tilaka. What I did was 1:3 here. It's called tishram. So this also can be done. You can do other things also. Again, there's creative scope. What you can do with this is immense. Depending on your own capacity and your own interest in this, you can. This is also an important part of presenting a Pallavi. There are Pallavis like this Nalika. There are Pallavis that are in Nades. So 1 beat into 7. For example, sorry. Tirparangiri Tiresendu Paranimalai Muruga Tiruveragam Tirutanigai Paramodir Choli Tirparangiri Tiresendu Paranimalai Muruga Tiruveragam Tirutanigai Paramodir Choli. Important part of the Pallavi is how beautiful is it structured. It can't be a bout or a fighting match. This was structured by one of my gurus. And here it makes things more interesting because 7 is an odd position and per beat you're keeping 7, which makes it very interesting. Again, how much can you not show the mathematical rhythmic complexity and get the raga to still bloom is where the beauty lies. So, like, in fact, in this structure, the most incredible part of this Pallavi is the last part, where it's an 8 actually. So, taka dhimi taka janu is a part. So, padamodir choli, that's the most beautiful part of the Pallavi. Muruga Tiruveragam Tirutanigai Paramodir Choli Tirupar. And 8 is very tricky. So, and this again, but it provides very interesting challenges. How you can again. So, and then there are also shorter Pallavis. So sometimes you sing short alapana, short Tanam, sing a shorter Pallavi. For example, it's one of those little tiny ones. But that is also there. It has its own beauty. Raga Bilhari. So you generally sing a very crisp alapana and a Tanam. Param. Okay. It's a very odd position. It's 5 beats after the sama. So, taka takita. Parama Nanda Govinda Mukunda Parama. The Mukunda hides the complexity of the pickup point. Mukunda. It's Sani Dapa Magari. Okay, just watch. Parama Nanda Govinda Mukunda 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 Parama Nanda Gabada zani dari zani gabada zani gabama gabama gari gabama gari gabada bama gari gabada zani badari zani gabada gari zani dari zani gabada bama gari gabama gada da baba magari gani ni da baba magari gari ri zani ni da baba magari gaga gari ri zani ni da baba ri zani da zani da baba magari parama washi now there's something else also you can do, not in this Pallavi, but I'll use this. Now this is an odd number takeoff, right? Taka taki tapar. It's an odd number. Now, if you sang first speed, usually you sing pa ma ga ri. You sing it on even. Pa ma ga ri ga sa ri. Now, you can't sing it on even and take this point because the point is odd number. So, what we will do, we will sing first speed, but after every one beat. The magic is nobody should know it's difficult. Ga pa 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 ma ga ri ga sa ri ga pa pa da pa pa ma ga ri ga pa da da pa da ma ga ri ga pa da sa ni da ba da ga ri sa ni da ba da ri sa ni da pa ma ga parama. Now, this is in Laya a difficult thing to do. But I shouldn't sing ga pa da sa di da pa da ga di sa di da pa ma ga ga di parama. Now this is not music. But can I hide this? And the beautiful thing, you must sing it as if you are singing on even. If I sang it normally, pa 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 ma ga ri ga pa. Now pa 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 ma ga ri ga pa da ba ma ga ri ga sa ni da sa ri ga sa ri ga pa ma ga pa da ma ga pa da ni da pa da ma ga ri ga pa da sa ma ga ri ga pa da ga ri sa ni da pa da ri Sani da pa da pa ma ga ri parama na. So this is also possible. Well, these are the possibilities. We also sometimes sing Ragamalika Swaras in the Pallavi. That's also part of it. Again, instead of just singing Ragamalikas, we can do one little thing, and we will just try a quick exchange here. The point is, you sing, I'm singing. I'll just sing Bilahari for now, in Sama, just to show you how. Is to pick one phrase out of Bilahari and convert it to another raga. Now, you just play Bilahari. Samathile. Kirkalam. Kirkalam, kirkalam. Allah theriyum. Rigari ga pa 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 ma ga ri pa ma ga ri ga sa ri ga pa pa ri ga sa ri ga pa da pa ma ga ri ga pa da ma ga ri ga pa da ni ga ri ga pa ma ga ri ga sa sa ri ga sa sa ri ga sa sa ri ma ga sa sa ri ma ga sa ni Sari gama gama ma pa ma ga ri gama pa re ni ga ma pa ma ga ri gama sa. Now this is also what you can do. You moved from Bilahari to Nilambari, but you use the aesthetic of Bilahari to Nilambari. Then she will use Nilambari to play something. I don't know. Now we can just go on. There's also another possibility sometimes. Just one, it's a very, I've used this before, classic. Gari in Todi. Gari, gari, niri, gari, niri, gari, gama, niri, gari, 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 sani, bani, sari, sani, ba. The ga of Todi and the ri of Madhyamavati are the same. Ga, ri, then you use that. Ga, ri, ri, sa, ga, ri, sa. So, all this also is a way in which you react immediately at that point and pick something and you sing. I'll stop here with the Pallavi. One last thing is, sometimes we take a poem, a shloka, could be in any language, and then we elaborate it. It's called Vritam singing, it's called Shloka singing. And here, just a few important things is, where again, like in Neraval, the point is the raga is inbuilt in the syllabic structure. It's not sung at the end. So you don't sing the whole. Now I'll sing a shloka which my guru used to, Shamuri Srinivasi, used to sing a lot. The words are, Maulau Ganga Shashankau, Karacharana Tale Sheetalanga Bhujangaha, Vame Bhage Dayadra Himagiri Tanaya, Chandanam Sarvagatrehe, Ittam Sheetam Prabhutam Tava Kanaka Sabhanata Sodum Kwashaktihi, Chitte Nirveda Tapte Yadi Bhavati Nate Nityavaso Madihe. This is the words. But Maulau Ganga, Maulau Ganga, Maulau Ganga, Maulau Ganga, Maulau Ganga, 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 Shashanko, 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 Karacharana Tale Sheetalanga, Sheetalanga. So you extend the syllables. Sheetalanga Bhujangaha, Vame, 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 Dayadra Himagiri Tanaya Chandanam Sarvagatrehe, Ittam, 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 Sheetam Prabhutam Tava Kanaka Sabhanata Sodhum, Tava Kanaka, Tava Kanaka, Tava Kanaka, Tava Kanaka, Tava Kanaka, Tava Kanaka, Kanaka, Kanaka Sabhanata Sodhum Tava Kanaka Sabhanata 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 Sodhum Kvashaktihi Kvashaktihi Chitte Nirveda Tapte Chitte Nirveda Tapte Chitte 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 Nirveda Tapte Nirveda Tapte Nirveda Tapte Nirveda Tapte Yadi Bhavati Nate Yadi Bhavati Nate Yadi Bhavati 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 Sabash. So what you do is you use this poem, and there are certain things you can extend. One important thing is that in the syllabic there is an almost, it is there in some treatises, but it's also an unwritten rule that on a Hrisva Sahitya, you can ink as a Dirgha. So, Chitte can be Chitte, no problem. But on a Dirgha Sahitya, you can't shorten it. So, Nirveda Sapte cannot, for him, Nitya Vaso. Nitya Vaso, it can be Nitya Vaso. Never be that. So we have to remember that Nitya Vaso is the Dirgha has to be maintained. But if it is a short one, then I'm allowed to pull it how much ever I want. And here also it's important. Maulo Ganga Shashanko. To only tag it at the end of the raga is terrible. The raga should be in between. And we sometimes sing it Ragamalika, sometimes we sing it in one raga. Sometimes you can sing it by itself, or you can also follow it by a composition. That completely depends on the musician. It's also important to remember that the compositions, first of all, Carnatic music has much more than kirtanas. There are kirtanas, there are javalis, there are padams, there are varnams, there are tillanas, there is jatiswaram, there is dharu varnam. In varnams, there is Schloka varnam, there is Tanam varnam. There are at least about 11 different compositional forms itself. Each form has a different aesthetic. And very important that these compositions are not some written in stone and etched that they have to be sung in only one method. Even in the tradition, there are many schools that are there. Now, one important aspect of many of the compositions, inbuilt in them are triggers for improvisation. So, if I take a known composition, the idea of the Sangati or the idea of variation in a line is also passed down in the tradition. Now, very important, these variations are not necessarily made by the composer 150 years ago. If anybody thinks that we sing the composition the way Tyagaraja sang it, we are completely not possible. It has evolved through years of musicians rendering it. The Kala Pramanas have changed. The Sangatis have changed between one school. What is a Sangati? I'll take Aurangashai because it has many. The star? Okay, he wants another composition. Fine. Chakkani Raja. The first line is Chakkani Raja Margamulundaga Chakkani Raja Margamulunda. First variation. Chakkani Raja Margamulunda Sing it again. Chakanira margamulundaga. Next. Chakanira margamulundaga. Chakanira margamulundaga. Chakanira Now, many of these are passed down through the Shishya Paramparas. Now, in this itself, there are many variations. There's no one school of only one. Some composition structures have become famous. Those variations, basically a variation in a line of a composition that is passed down through the Guru Shishya Parampara, and that to a large extent is retained by the Parampara. These variations are the Sangatis. Now, but again, they are not etched in stone. You will find in Aurangasai, for example, there is a Sangati that is sung by one school, which another. Now, I'll just sing the last one. The last one is a Madhyama Kala Sangati. What my guru actually, Shamugudi Srinivas, set many of these Sangatis for Aurangasai. The composition Aurangasai, if you YouTube it today, whatever Sangatis you hear, is set by my guru. He reconstructed and restructured and created. There's a great creative input that goes into that structuring. The Sangati has to be a mold of the original line, which builds like a blossoming flower of the original line. And it has to grow. So if you saw in Chakkani Raja, you saw the whole growth, the sudden growth that was happening with the way the Sangatis evolved. That's a very important aspect. So, Rangasha. Now the last Sangati is Ranga. Now there is a Sangati that Mushri Subramanian, another great musician, is singing, but my guru never sang it. It's a beautiful Sangati. It doesn't have the razzmatazz of that is also texture of my guru's music. So even the Sangatis are not some fixed thing. And by the way, every time we sing it, we don't sing it like we etched it in stone. We also do a lot of interpretation that is happening. Now, when I learned Chakkani Raja from my guru, but when I sing Chakkani Raga, there are little things that keep on moving. There are Sangatis I have added sometimes. So the composition itself is an evolving creation. The whole beauty of the oral tradition is the fact that it allows memory and the mind to create growth in the musical idea. So when I receive a composition 10 years ago, the 10 years of music that I'm involved in, if I sing it 10 years later, the same Sangatis have evolved. They have moved. They have little changes. But those main, like everybody knows, many little things make a greater, larger than one big thing. And there are many little things that constantly move. So the composition itself is alive. It's not a dead piece of work that we are just presenting. We have to live the composition every time. And only when we live the composition, does the composition get recreated, rediscovered. So it is important that the composition is such an important aspect of this music. It's important to respect that it's such an essential aspect. If we don't relive the composition, where will the Alapana come from? Where will the Neraval come from? Where will the Tanam come from? Where will the Kalpanaswaras come from? So we have to look at the creative process itself differently. First of all, let's also be honest that a lot of what we do as improvisation on stage is reorganization. It's actually reorganization. But the beauty of the reorganization is the magic that we discover when we reorganize it. So even the two known Sangatis, when they just suddenly come up in a position that you've never seen it before, it's a new Sangati. It's a new form. So the same phrase here after this and that, but if it is there, it's a new phrase because it's been rediscovered in a different context. So we reorganize many times. And when we reorganize, we also find new things. What is new? The new is that which gives you an experience that is new. It does not mean that that phrase has never been sung before in the history of this musical form. If we believe that, we are fooling ourselves thoroughly. But which is why the known phrase sung by 10 people, only few of them get aha. Not all the 10 people. Because those few people rediscover that known phrase as an unknown quantity at that moment. And that is the most important spirit of creativity. It is, I think we over-exaggerate this ability to suddenly do something there. I mean, there's not something suddenly happening over there. You're just living there. You're just living there. If you can live there, then magic happens. I mean, you can do vocal gymnastics and jump 3 octaves 14 times. Very happy for you. But that necessarily does not mean you're creating music. Right? So I think we have to, we overestimated this whole idea of, wahan sab kuch hua. Nahi hua. It didn't happen all there. It happened much before. The musician heard it only then. It happened much before. The musician heard it only then. And because the musician heard it, you heard it. If the musician did not hear it, you will never hear it. So I think the creative process that happens quietly, the sangatis that are there in the composition, are essential aspects of what can possibly happen when we are assembled like this in an auditorium, or we are assembled at home while singing. It doesn't matter. So therefore, I think I have pretty much made it clear, without saying it blatantly, that this obsession that Carnatic music is about Bhakti is the most wrong idea and notion that needs to be dispelled. Carnatic music is Raga music. Raga comes in different forms, in different flavors. And I want to say something about Bhakti as the composer, Avagyekara. The problem there is the Sahitya, right? All the Sahitya is about gods and goddesses. But I wanted to say that the composers themselves have done some magical things. They have created structures where the meaning disappears. They've created forms where the linguistic meaning doesn't matter. And I'm telling you, with my own research, I have seen old notations, I've seen old oral versions where the meaning has just gone. And it is created by these great masters. The same master has also created Bhakti Sangeet, where you will see a very conscious process of saying the lyrical meaning has to be communicated because this is about a religious experience. So in Namasankirtana kind of music, that's a different thing. So it is, I think the most abstractive aspect of Carnatic music is how we are able to use huge compositional basis with a lot of lyrical form, yet go beyond the lyrical meaning. And that ability that Carnatic music has inbuilt in it is something that we need to dive into and discover. So the different rasas possible in Carnatic music are every rasa that a human being can experience. If you have not experienced it, it's not the fault of the music. It is your inability to go beyond that. Okay? I think I've pretty much finished what I wanted to say. I just want to say thank you very much. Yes. Javali is an interesting form. It evolved only in the late 19th century. It came out of actually the salons of Madras. And it's a completely, the poetry is all, shall we say, fun and frolic love and romance. It's not the deep romance, but it's a lot of teasing and a lot of fun. And this is especially important, Javali, the one she's asking, is in the Raga Paras. It's actually a Javali on a musician. It's on the great musician Veena Dhanamal, who's considered one of the greatest musicians that Carnatic music has ever seen. And from what we have heard of her, I think there's no denying that. And there's one interesting thing to this. This Raga is... re ri ram a ri re ta ri ta da ra ra tam. Again, it's an abstract raga. Na na and in this I want you to pay attention to one note that will appear. So this raga does not have the higher madhyama, what we call you call tivra madhyama, prati madhyama. But in the tradition that comes through the dharma family, they will drop one prati madhyama at the end. And it's almost as if the composition is made for that prati madhyama. This raga does not have that note. But just watch for it. It's what the most beautiful part of this composition is that swara that does not exist in this raga. Smara sundaranguni sariyovare Smara sundaranguni sariyovare Smara sundaranguni sariyovare Sarasa koti lona vaziru hamire Smara sundarang Smara sundaranguni sariyovare Sarasa koti lona vaziru hamire Smara sundaranguni sariyovare Sarasa koti lona vaziru hamire ఆడిన మాటలు గడ్డము పాలు కాడ 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 గడ్డము పాలు కాడ చెడిగలన కనులర చూడరే చెడిగలన కనులర చూడరే కనులర చూడరే చెడిగలన కనులర చూడరే రంగుని సరియో వీణులకింపుక వీణావహించి వీణులకింపుక వీణావహించి వీణులకింపుక వీణావహించి వీణావహించి వీణులకింపుక వీణావహించి వీణావహించి ఆవహించి అలి వేణుల పాడిన సభాషుడే సభాషుడే పాడిన సభాషుడే వేణుల పాడిన సభాషుడే వేణుల పాడిన పాడిన సభాషుడే సో గుణి సరియోవరే సరస కోటి లోన బచిరు హమేర స్మర సుందరాంగుని సరియోవరే సరస కోటి సరస కోటి సరస కోటి లోన బచిరు హమేర I want to first say that inbuilt in the discussion of form, first of all, I think the idea that there is this whole complex form cannot be separated from the idea of content. But the question is how you defining content. That's the whole question. The question is not that, first of all, form exists only if there is content, and content exists only if there's form. First of all, you cannot have both those things separating themselves. Grammar has sense only if there's poetry, and you can write only poetry if there's grammar. So this separation cannot be first made. The question is, how are you defining content? Are you going to limit the understanding of content to the idea of the meaning of the word? That is the whole question. Now, I'll say two things. If somebody derives bhakti, I have no right to stop them from deriving bhakti. I have no business. But if you ask me if the intention of the music is only bhakti, I'll say no. Those are two different things. Even this name, the bhakti, such words itself need more investigation, first of all. I think the whole idea that we have reduced the idea of bhakti first has to be discussed. There's reductionist to the idea of bhakti itself, let alone music. Why bring music, bhakti into music? The idea of bhakti itself needs rediscovery. So, now the question is the art music form of Carnatic music an evangelical form of bhakti rasa? Answer is capital N, capital O. Okay? Will somebody derive bhakti from it? I have no right in saying you should not think of Rama. I can't say that. I will not say that. But it's important to separate these two things in discussion, because otherwise we get stuck in that. Now, it's very easy to make everything bhakti. Sringara also becomes Sringara bhakti. Right? You can make everything bhakti if you want to. The point is, how do you want to look at it? And I want to say that it's important, a form discussion is important, because my discovery in form by the great composers shows me that they themselves were not reductionists to bhakti. And we have been reductionist and got trapped in it, in the way we are interpreting it or we are understanding it. So if you look at a Tyagaraja Kirtana, I mean, for example, so many Kirtanas, you look at the so-called meaning and the tempo and the flavor of the Kirtana, you find both actually not going together. And you wonder how? Because the composer themselves went beyond. The composer saw language as a different texture. If you think of language as a musical texture, then your understanding is very different. And I think that is the essence of Carnatic music. That's why compositions are important. Compositions are not important because they are bhakti rasa. They are important because they give language a textural abstraction. And it's through that we understand how to sing alapana. I want to tell you one important thing. In an alapana, if I sing a phrase like this, Akshaya Ling Shankarabhanam Gaya Vibho Swayambho. You know that when I sing the alapana, I learn where to place the syllables because of the composition. When I sing, Akshayal, is how I'll sing that phrase. I won't sing, ta na 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 na. I'll never sing that. Where am I learning it? Because I know Akshalinga Vibho. It teaches me how to frame a phrase. A phrase is framed not by the melodic movement only, but also by the textual emphasis that happen. And that is also learned from learning these compositions. So there is a lot of texture that we are withdrawing. And of course, Laya, so many other things, but I'm just giving an example. So it depends on how you want to see it. I mean, that's all, ultimately. I'm delaying, shall we say, the sonic oral texture of language. Because the most beautiful part of language is consonant and vowel. And if it's in the relationship of the consonant and the vowel that language is beautiful. I always say this. Everybody says Urdu is beautiful. Even I say it. I don't understand one word of Urdu. But it's beautiful. So there is something aesthetic that touches me about Urdu that goes beyond the language of Urdu. I mean, this is a very simple example. But I think this teaches you something, right? French is beautiful. I don't understand anything they say. But it's beautiful. So there is an emotional connection that happens from the sonic structure of a language. And you must realize that the compositions explore that incredibly. Especially Tyagaraja, Dikshit, and they're fabulous. And the way they've explored that possibility. You know, Dikshit, I use the example a lot because in the same composition, there's a syllable ksha. Okay? It's one of my favorite examples to throw in because it's so obvious. Daksha Sikshana Daksha Darasura Lakshana Vidhi Vilakshana Lakshya Rakshana Bahu Vichakshana Sudha Bhakshana Kataksha Vikshana. I don't understand one word. But just listen to it. And just listen to the ksha. And every ksha is a new ksha. Daksha Sikshana Daksha Darasura Lakshana Vidhi Vilakshana Laksha Rakshana Bahu Vichakshana Sudha Bhakshana Guru Kataksha Vikshana. No, don't tell me Dikshithar only did it to tell me what. He did something else with this. Every ksha speaks to you. Daksha, it's almost like you're talking to somebody, you know. Daksha Sikshana Daksha Dara Sura Lakshana Vidhi Vilakshana Laksha Rakshana Bahu Vichakshana Sudha Bhakshana Guru Kataksha Vikshana Akshaya. The prosody of language is such a musical idea, and all these composers explored that, inhabited that in a way that we need to try and find a little bit of.